How's it going? Thanks for downloading the show. Welcome to Garden Fork Radio. Today it's me and my friend Gabe from the Save It for Parts YouTube channel. Welcome, sir.
Thanks, Eric.
I just wanted to start out by saying I'm a big fan of the eclecticism of your channel, which is much like Garden Forks. I kind of think we're kind of twin brothers of different mothers out there.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I've definitely compared you to my channel on occasion, and I've tried to send folks over from my channel sometimes because it's, you do a lot of interesting stuff over there on Garden Fork.
Karma is boomerang, you know?
I suppose so, yeah.
So I have a deep question here. I love that you just kind of turn on the camera and go, oh, by the way, I bought this box of stuff for $100. And you say it's from a local auction, and it's like a box of walkie-talkies from 1972. Where do you find those auctions? Because I don't know where I would find them.
Oh gosh, I get asked that a lot, and I sometimes I hesitate to give away my secret auctions, but they're not really that secret. There's a couple websites that I point people to because it's different in each area. So every town and city usually has some local auction companies that handle, business closeouts, estates. Around here, all the estate sales have kind of gone away from people's houses and onto auctions, especially after COVID. And estatesales.net is one.
Oh.
And that'll be when somebody passes away, if they're, they have a house full of junk and the family maybe doesn't want people traipsing through the house to buy it, so they'll get one of these companies to come in and take a picture of each thing, list it online. And you can still find those traditional ones on estatesales.net, so they can, if you want to go traipse through someone's house, if you want to go snoop on a house in the rich part of town, that's a good way to do it. But, and then the other one is auctionguy.com is kind of it's like an umbrella company that lists a bunch of local auctions, so you can go on there and search for whatever state and see who's selling stuff in that area for like liquidations and things.
So is there I think I kind of know the creation story, but you were in Alaska and now you're in Minnesota, and you have kind of an animal menagerie in the yard. Was that something you came to when you and your partner moved to Minnesota, or was that something from your childhood?
A little of both. My partner Rachel is from Minnesota, so she grew up here, and she had ducks and back at her family's place, and I had ducks when I was a kid, or my family had ducks, and so we were kind of talking about it here. We ended up getting this great big yard. It's like a triple lot basically, so we have lots of yard space. Nice. And we thought, let's get some ducks and dig a hole in the ground, and we have actually dug a couple ponds, one for them and one for kind of a garden pond. But they're a lot of fun. Currently 5 ducks and 1 goose. And the goose kind of hates everything in the world and tries to fight everything. So.
Yeah, geese are not the nicest animals sometimes.
No, this one's. It's mellowed out a little bit. It goes back and forth whether it hates me or not. But yeah, definitely the guard animal for any stray cats or raccoons or anything.
I mean, it's kind of like a built-in alarm system.
Yeah, I know when people are in the yard or if there's interesting animals around, because the goose is usually trying to kill the local wildlife. But
I have several times been in people who have a big yard or a big piece of land, and they have peacocks, and they're like an alarm animal.
Sure. Yeah, those are fun.
And then one day we were at the zoo, the New York, I call it the Bronx Zoo. It's called the New York Wildlife something or other. But the first time I was there were peacocks running around, just not in a cage. And I thought, oh my God, they've broken out of their environment, And the guy's like, no, we just let them roam. It's totally fine, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some spots like that around here. There's a brewery that we went to down in southern Minnesota, and they have peacocks. They're free range, and they said every now and then one gets bored and runs off to live with a local flock of turkeys, but usually they stick around because they know they get fed there.
There's food.
Yeah.
So could we ping over to, you've talked about this network called Meshtastic several times on your videos.
Oh, sure.
What is that?
So it's kind of like a radio-based text message system, and hopefully I can explain it right here. I dabble in it. I am not an expert, despite the efforts of the local Mesh Club, who have been really supportive of my channel and my nonsense, and I've gotten them into a couple spots for antennas. But it's basically a little these little electronic devices. You can get them for about $20 online, and they'll send and receive short text messages to other devices in the local area, and then the network is really only limited by how far you can spread these devices out. They'll go, in a city, they'll go maybe a quarter mile between each radio, and out in the country, if you get one up on a tower or something, they'll go a few miles. And it really varies. Like some areas, it's not very popular. Like areas here in the Twin Cities, we've got, I think, hundreds of users, and it's almost started to overload the channel that they're using it on. There's different channels, and there's different like details with it, but it's essentially a low power, unlicensed radio frequency that you can use to just send text messages out to everybody else on the frequency. So kind of like a public chat room, I guess.
So they have here in New York, they have a nonprofit called NYC Mesh, and they have several T1 connections to the internet with these very large transmitters, and then they create this alternate internet mesh by putting little repeaters on people's rooftops. And is this kind of similar to that, except it's radio based?
Yeah, and it's not full internet. It's not
right.
It's very low bandwidth. It's very low. You basically you can send these little text messages, and I think they're similar to the old Twitter of like 140 characters or something. So, you're not going to be able to get online with it. You can't check, you can't download anything. You can't check Wikipedia. You can basically just message other users, with the caveat that I guess people have tied it into other things on occasion. Like you can tie it into a printer and have it print out messages. You could tie it into something like a bulletin board system where it will store messages, but those are all sort of third-party add-ons that people have done. It's fairly standalone. You could set up your own little mesh system at your house or on a farm, or just for your own community. You could even have it encrypted. You don't have to be on that public channel if you want to have your own private messaging system.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask about whether you could encrypt it. Because essentially, if your local internet goes down by accident or on purpose, you could still use this. If you had this set up ahead of time, you could still communicate with people.
Yeah, so that's kind of the idea. So if you're in a community, let's say you're in a neighborhood or in an off-grid community or a small town or something, and it's an alternative, I guess, to walkie-talkies or to telephones, to regular phone text messages if you want to be able to communicate in a disaster or some other situation like that.
We go to the local county fair, and the local ham radio shortwave club has a tent there, and everyone just kind of walks by and looks at these guys and doesn't stop. And I'm like, you need to be friends with these people, because when everything gets turned off, this will still work,
Yeah, that's been a big part of ham radio, and I that's another thing I kind of dabble in. I've had a ham radio license since college, and I don't use it a lot. I'm usually distracted by other radio projects, satellite projects. But I do have a technician license, kind of the entry level ham license, and I've played around with it. I've taken it to we've gone to kind of some volunteer stuff for natural disasters and tried to help out in that way. And then there's a lot of preparedness stuff. There's a lot of different ways you can go with ham radio. It's a kind of a big wide hobby.
Do you have to? You no longer need to know Morse code to get a license. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, they dropped that for the excuse me, for the technician class at least, and possibly for the other ones. I don't know. I haven't looked into upgrading my license, but right around the time I got it, they had just dropped that requirement for the entry level, which I'd always kind of wanted to learn it anyway, but that's just one more barrier to getting into it, is trying to memorize that.
Yeah, that was the barrier for me. But And I think I've seen you on your channel. You have a couple handheld shortwave transmitters.
Yeah, I don't really have space for a traditional ham shack. Like when you think of a ham radio shack, is what they call it. It's usually your basement's full of big radios and giant antennas out on the roof and whatnot. I don't have space for that, and so most of my radios live in a box, and they're the cheap imported ones normally because. I own some nicer name brand radios, and I've actually picked some up recently at an auction, but then I feel bad bringing those out on a boat or out hiking. I don't want to drop my $300 radio if I can bring out a $20 radio instead. So, and there's some drama with that. A lot of those $20 radios aren't very. They're dirty. They kind of bleed over onto other frequencies, and that's not very nice, I guess, if you're being a respectful ham operator.
That's my dilemma with my father-in-law. Gave me a very nice Leatherman multi-tool.
Sure.
And it's at least $120, $150 tool, and it's beautifully made. And I am scared to death to carry that thing around on my belt because I am famous for losing tools.
Oh, sure.
So I bought, Harbor Freight has come out with a clone of that, and it's $30. And then on Amazon, thanks to, it's the guy who has the tool email. I'll drop in the audio here. He has a nice newsletter about, he's from the Cool Tools family. Oh, it's called Tool. Anyway, I'll drop in the audio here. But then he pointed out a multi-tool that on Amazon that's $18. I've been carrying around the $18 one, and it's fine. And then if I lose it, I'm only out $18.
Sure. I tend to break those, the cheaper ones, because I'm always misusing mine. But so I do tend to carry a little bit nicer one, although I've already, I've always break the knife tip off, or it's always packed full of sand or something. So,
well, you're always climbing up on a geodesic dome trying to fix it, so I don't do that.
Yeah, yeah, or down in the tunnels at SandLand or something. But
hey, real quick, we all know that Eric has an Amazon store on Amazon. If you want to start your shopping there by going to our landing page, they call it storefront they call it, amazon.com/shop/gardenfork. Check out the tools I suggest, generators, winter must-have stuff. Also, anything you buy there, we get an affiliate link for a finder's fee, plus also anything else you purchase that day on Amazon, starting from our page and going wherever in Amazon, we get a little finder's fee for that too. Helps pay the bills. Super appreciate it. Make sure to shop local. Go to your local hardware store, okay? But if you're going to Amazon, maybe try and use our link. That'd be great. Thanks. So long story short, you have a friend who bought some land in northern Wisconsin and started tunneling through the sandstone. So makes kind of a series of tunnels.
yeah.
Did he know that there was sandstone he could dig through, or was that like a happy accident?
No, he picked the land pretty specifically for that, and I actually went out and helped him look when he started this idea. We went out and drove around, met some realtors, looked at different properties, and we looked at one that already had a Cold War fallout shelter that somebody had built back in the day, and I thought that one was pretty cool, but it had a nicer view, and so it was more expensive, and so he didn't end up getting that one. But yeah, he looked at the geology pretty carefully. He looked at well records, and wanted to find this spot that had basically enough coverage of area plus vertical, vertical layer, thickness of the sandstone layer.
A vertical rise, yeah.
Yeah, so then lots of room for tunnels, and that's the main thing that he uses the property for is just, and it's not like a fallout shelter. It's not a survivalist thing. It's just we like tunnels. He likes tunnels. I like tunnels. We've got a number of friends who enjoy, exploring old mines and exploring caves and I guess why not build your own once you've gotten bored with exploring the existing ones. I think that's kind of the the strange but true background of it.
I like that it has kind of there is a patriarch, there is a head person there, so there's not like a political battle for who's in charge. We all know who's in charge, but the fact that there's kind of a communal space for like-minded people to go hang out. And on the top of the hill there, it looks like you have like some picnic tables and a little shed next to the geodesic dome, and you can hang out. And that part of it is very attractive to me because I find it hard sometimes, especially as I get older, to find people that have the same brain that I do and is more like, hey, let's just go try this thing, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and we've all joked about, where are we all on the spectrum of various
Yes.
various odd brains for sure. Yeah, and yeah, it can be interesting having a property like that. Definitely, the owner is kind of what he says goes. So
Yeah.
if you want to do some project out there, you have to get permission. And usually his rule is kind of do what you want, but you're responsible for it. If it collapses, you have to clean it up. If it becomes a safety issue, you're responsible. If he wants it gone for some reason, if he has some other idea for that space, then you might have to move it. And that's kind of the understanding, which has been, that's worked out for most people. Nobody's investing. I shouldn't say that because I guess I invested a lot of money in the monorail, but that's kind of beneficial to the property because people can stay in it. If somebody's out there on the weekend, it's kind of like a little cabin that you can camp out in, and it's adding to the property, I think, and the owner thinks as well, so that's good. So
Yeah.
it's not
It's like a sectional cabin. It's like each car of the monorail is its
right.
own. Is it like each one is a distinct little cabin?
Right. Yeah, they're fairly self-contained. You could crawl between them. They've got these little access hatches between the cars, but normally we just store junk in there. But yeah, so each one is like its own little camper cabin space. It's about the size of a small travel trailer or something.
I love that kind of thing. That's great. So I wanted to ping over to you going to Alaska with 7 of your friends on a boat, which I would like just to preface by say I couldn't do that. I couldn't have 7 friends on a boat for a week.
Well, it was 7 of us total, I think. Yeah, yeah. It wasn't 8 total. We were going to be 9 total originally. We had 9 people lined up, and 2 of them dropped out last minute due to health reasons. But 7 worked out. It was, it wasn't a huge boat. It wasn't a tiny boat. It technically had bed space, I think, for like 10 people, but that would have been. Yeah, I think we would have been at each other's throats after a while if there were 9 or 10. So 7 worked out pretty well.
And I've also noticed that well, we could talk about the 360 camera as well, but I like the tour of the boat. And then you mentioned that your sister is a boat captain on the Columbia River, did you say?
Right. Yeah, she's been doing that for a while now. She started out as a deckhand and has been kind of working her way up to the wheelhouse. And yeah, she drives big barges and tugs with grain and paper products and all kinds of stuff up and down the river out there. So I think that's really cool.
That
I
is
mean,
great.
that's much more of a professional career than I've had the attention span for. So
In other words, she's the adult.
I suppose, yeah, she's the younger one, but she's the more responsible one, I suppose. But
Just to have to compensate for shifting water and the torque of what kind of engine and just the inertia of a barge full of grain wanting to go one direction and you're trying to make it go another direction.
right, and then you get the small boaters who may technically have right of way but are much more maneuverable, and you get you get fishermen not paying attention, and you get all kinds of things that logs floating down the river, all kinds of things to watch out for. So it can be, yeah, it's not something I've ever done on that scale, but I think I would be stressed out by it.
I wouldn't mind riding on one for about an hour, you know? I'd be like, okay, this is too much stress for me. But I went to high school in St. Louis, so we were often
Oh, sure.
down by the river because we were kids and I had a Volkswagen Beetle and we would, just bomb around the town. And just to get all those boats through the lock and figuring out that's just brain power that I do not have. So I'm fascinated by that. That's very
Yeah, and
cool.
sometimes it's multiple steps. If you have a ton of barges, you might only be able to fit half of them in the lock, and then they have to do a little dance to get it through, which is that's crazy to me. I've been boating on the Mississippi River up here and had to wait we have to wait for a barge and tug to go through the lock, and you're sitting there for maybe a couple hours waiting for them to get clear. And yeah, I'm sure it's not it's one of those jobs. I think it's long. What do they say? Long periods of tedium interspersed with moments of terror, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So yeah,
Well, that's kind of like what happened with that boat in the Suez Canal.
right. Yeah.
It was just, well, not just a huge wind, but there was this huge wind, and the canal pilots started arguing with each other about what to do.
Yeah, that's not a good.
No. So my last question is going back to your boat trip. I was curious about the logistics of that. Plus, also, you could just tell us a little bit about the boat. You gave a tour of the boat, and I thought that was pretty cool. And maybe we could just share that with people here.
Sure. Yeah. So it was called a Nordic Tug is the brand, and it's a pretty. They've been around for a while. They're a pretty bulletproof design. They're slow, comfortable, and they can handle. The advertising is that the boat will handle more weather than the passengers want to. So, yeah. So like you mentioned earlier, I grew up in Alaska. My sister and I have operated boats up there for long enough that when I called up the rental company, they said, "Yeah, you sound legit. You don't need a captain. You can do a bareboat charter, which is where you crew it yourself." And yeah, the logistics, we had to rent it, basically reserve it a year in advance because they book up a year in advance, and
Wow.
then plan basically everything, meals, everybody's different food preferences, who's going to cook meals on different days, where are we going to buy it. Fortunately, there's a Costco in Juneau, so some of us were able to get a van and go to Costco, while others, like they do a walk through the boat to familiarize you with the equipment. So while I was doing that, some other folks were out loading up on food, and then yeah, just equipment, rain gear. I'm used to Southeast Alaska. It rains 24/7,
Yeah.
365, but we had just crazy luck when we were up there. It didn't rain the whole time, essentially, and it rained both before and after. So we brought all this expensive rain gear that we didn't need to use, which better to have it. But yeah, just planning all the equipment, planning the route, where are we going to anchor each night, what do we want to see, what are alternate routes if the weather misbehaves, if there's ice, where we want to go up this glacier. And we just missed this giant landslide and tsunami at the glacier, which happened like 2 weeks after we were there.
Oh,
So
wow.
if that had happened, well, if that had happened while we were there, it would have been a whole other story. But if it had happened before we went up, we would have to detour because the whole channel was full of ice after that. But yeah, lots of planning that went into that trip. So.
I didn't even think about that at all. I just thought, oh, they rented a boat and hopped on and went. I like that the boat had its own little what's those little boats that have the air inflated and has an outboard on the back of it?
Oh yeah, a little Zodiac is kind of the generic term, but yeah, a little dinghy to go ashore, and that didn't fit all of us, but they gave us a couple kayaks to use too, so we could pretty much get everybody onto shore if we wanted. Although we found a couple spots we could tie up to a dock as well, so that was nice. We didn't have to shuttle folks in the small boat.
And you guys went fishing and crabbing off the boat, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So they, I think we paid a little extra for some fishing poles and gear, and then crab pots. And the crab they're almost wiped out up there, it seems like, and everybody has a different opinion on why. But the Dungeness crab are very hard to find legal ones. And I remember when I was a kid, I mean, we ate crab all the time. That was like the poor people food because that's what you could catch, and they were everywhere. And now we caught one legal Dungeness crab on the whole trip, and it was a lot different than my childhood. But we got some salmon and halibut too, so that was nice.
Nice. Those are both very nice fish.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, if you guys want to check out Gabe's Alaska trip, there's like 5 or 6 videos now, and I thought it was great that on your whole trip and the different going on land, you went to some mines, you went to a fish processing area. I mean, it's all, and these are all ruins, but it's all super interesting. And you shot it with the 360 camera, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, that was a new one for us. We'd been watching another YouTuber, Tokyo Lens, who uses one a lot for his videos, and yeah, we decided, let's get one of these fancy new cameras, and it was a lot of fun. It really adds another dimension to your videos.
So are you, just to geek out for a minute, because everyone knows I'm going to do this. So you shoot the camera records basically a 360 shot, and then in the edit, you can pick what part of that 360 shows up in the rectangle of video.
Right, so you could do a full 360. You can just export the raw video, and then folks can actually. YouTube does a thing where if you're watching on a phone, you can move your phone around, and it's like a VR thing.
Yes.
Or if you're on a computer, you can click and drag around. But yeah, the Insta360 software, which is it's an Insta360 X5 camera. Yeah, the software lets you basically pan, zoom, select what you want to see in that rectangle, and set kind of keyframes. So if you want the picture to move, like if you're following somebody, or if you're, if you want it to rotate as the camera moves, you can choose all that in the software, and then you export it just as a regular HD video, and then I throw that into my other editing software. I use Shotcut, and I can integrate that into my regular flat videos.
That's tempting, because then you kind of don't have to think about where the camera's pointing, and sometimes just off the frame of your regular video camera is actually the interesting part of the shot,
Yeah, somewhat. There's still it's a different kind of thought that goes into it, which I'm learning. I've definitely gone back and looked at a lot of my 360 videos and said, well, I wish I was holding it in a different way, or farther from me, or up, or yeah. So you still have to think about what you're seeing or what the camera's seeing. It's just you're thinking about different factors. And it's hard to explain. It's just something that I have to get used to when I'm editing, and
right.
And yeah, it's a different mindset for than a traditional camera.
The one thing I read about was, if you're holding the 360 camera, it essentially has two lenses back to back.
Right.
Is whatever lens you have pointed toward the front, keep that one pointed to the front the whole time. And I think that I can see where some people, when they shoot it, they don't do that, because if you don't touch your computer screen while watching, all of a sudden you're looking to the side or something, because I'm sure it's an accident, they move the camera. But once you get on top of that, I think you're fine.
Yeah, and there are a couple modes, I think, and I haven't quite figured out where that setting is. There's a mode to kind of keep the view in the 360. You can keep the view pointed north, or whatever your initial view is, or you can keep it pointed at that front lens. So yeah, so that you can kind of pick and choose that to some extent, and I need to mess around with the settings more to learn how all that works.
I also liked the 360 camera video you did of the salvage. What's the salvage store up there called?
Oh, Axeman Surplus.
I've never seen a place like that, and they have 3 of those in Minneapolis, right?
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. They used to have 5, apparently. They used to have 2 more. There was one right by my work in the north suburbs, and that one shut down a few years ago. And I guess there was one before my time that was even bigger. And I guess it's so hard to describe Axeman. That's why the 360 video is great. It's just a store full of all kinds of junk that you don't know what it is, you don't know what it's for, but you desperately need it because it's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, they have everything from Halloween costumes to Ethernet cables to obscure serial adapters, 9-pin to 3-pin from 20 years ago.
Yeah, to old radios and weird surplus medical equipment, and yeah, it's surplus, but it's not military surplus. It's kind of similar to those auctions I talk about, when like a company goes out of business and they have a bunch of old stuff.
Yep.
A lot of times it ends up at Axeman.
But at least I like it because there's an attempt at organization there.
There's an attempt. It's difficult because, yeah, they get so much weird stuff. But and the other thing is they do really cool little signs. So they sit there and they'll make a sign, like for their diodes. I think they have somebody's done a little art of Dio, and it says Ronnie James diode, and then they'll, they make these little puns, or they make these little jokes about to pull you in and kind of get you to look at this cool little stuff. So I could do a whole video just on their signs if I wanted. I could spend days in there and not see all the signs, and those are always fun.
So they have an eBay site, right?
They do, yeah. So sometimes they'll put stuff that maybe wouldn't sell in a junk store, but somebody, maybe there's a little more worldwide use for it. Somebody out there in the world is going to need this specific device or will know what it is, whereas maybe somebody local in the Twin Cities won't care about it. So yeah, they do have an eBay store. I think if you look up Axeman on Google, you'll find their website and their eBay store.
And they have a newsletter, because I get their newsletter, and there's stuff that it's all about what they have for sale, if you're interested as well. So. Well,
yeah, there's another one over in Milwaukee that's American Science and Surplus, although I've heard rumors that they might be going out of business, but they're a similar store.
Ooh. All right, cool. So go to YouTube and watch Save It for Parts. Gabe and I are going to stick around for the after show for the patrons of the show. It's a cup of coffee a month to get the behind the scenes. There's more information about that in the show notes here. But let us know what your thoughts. It's always great to hear from you guys. That's radio@gardenfork.tv. Thanks, and make it a great day. We'll see you. Garden Fork Radio is produced by Garden Fork Media LLC in Brooklyn, New York. The music in the show is licensed from audioblocks.com and uniquetracks.com.